Good evening, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com. Coming to you live over internet streaming radio from Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to the show. We have a big night, a big hour here. A lot of things to talk about. And my partner in crime, my heteronormative life mate from another mother, the good Dr. Patrick Bertroche, is joining us via Skype once more from his hideout in Hawaii. Doc, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You're going to have to dumb down your words. I'm on vacation. I was getting mad because you're calling me a heterosexual for a minute.
I figured that was a good way to start the show, because one of the things that we want to talk about is this new. It's not a policy change yet, but the Boy Scouts of America, who have historically been very, very anti-gay. They don't allow homosexual members into their group, are now thinking about a policy change. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the immigration package that the president kind of endorsed today, that some bipartisan group of senators put together. We'll discuss some of the things related to that, and maybe get into the fact that Senator Harkin, Tom Harkin, Iowa's junior senator since 1985, is thinking about, or has already decided, he's not going to run in 2014. He's going to retire. And for a guy that's, I think, 73, 74, I don't know exactly how old he is. He didn't invite me to his last birthday party. That he's decided he's going to call it quits, and so we can talk about some of the issues related to that.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to tell you, that's probably the biggest news in the since the 2010 election cycle.
The 2010, you mean the 2012?
No,
I mean,
the 2010.
The presidential election cycle was pretty big.
Yeah, but I mean, I know there was a lot of news, but nothing that's going to shake the pillars of liberalism like this if they lose Harkin's seat. You have to keep in mind, Teddy Kennedy and Tom Harkin were best buddies. I mean, the grandfather of basically liberalism, socialism for the Democratic Party, and Tom Harkin voted virtually identically. And they're losing not only a very powerful person in Harkin, but a person that's well respected. And in fact, I think he probably took over the ideological heart of the Democratic Party after Ted Kennedy.
Well, he's certainly been kind of lauded as since I don't know if I would necessarily relate Kennedy's death to Tom Harkin's rise necessarily, because you had guys like Joe Biden who were from that generation who'd been around the Senate for a really long time. But I certainly think that Tom Harkin kind of embodied a lot of that old school liberalism that Teddy Kennedy was sort of famous for. Maybe a little more conciliatory, a little less bombastic than the former senator from the late senator from Massachusetts, but we'll kind of talk about that. So, Doc, I got to ask you, since it's been a week, you've been down in Hawaii what seems like forever. How's your vacation been going?
It's been going pretty well. I'm actually out here on a medical conference. It's not really a vacation. I'm out here with my brother Mike and his family and his new grandbaby, who is absolutely beautiful. This kid, you can't help but to giggle when you look at him. I mean, this kid's beautiful. So we've been together, catching up on a lot of things. We are doing a lot of different activities, and in fact, we just got out of the whirlpool, and that's been a good time. They're going to go up to the top of the volcano today.
Oh,
yeah. So it's really pretty cool. Now the problem is it's freezing up there, so. And I'm like, I got plenty of snow and crap and rain and bad weather.
Well, I'll tell you what you're coming home to. What you're coming home to this weekend is tomorrow is a big snow and ice storm. We've been under a blizzard advisory, and you know that I usually don't pay attention to this, but I've got a certain bookkeeper that hangs out in the office with me all day that keeps me apprised to every Iowa weather change, whether I want to know it or not.
Well, yeah, but she's just that way. It's all right. It's all right. So how have you been holding up back there? Is everything going okay?
Well, everything's going pretty well. The rain and the fog have been kind of a bummer. the last couple of days, but I'm sure that once your bright, shining face gets back to the great state of Iowa, the clouds will open, the fog will lift, and everything will be hunky-dory again. But, you know, when we got to plan the show, Doc and I like to take sort of a laissez-faire approach to what we're going to talk about, you know, sort of like the things that kind of occur to us as interesting or what we find interesting and think that you all might find interesting. And definitely one of the things that Doc and I sort of separately found interesting was he was doing his usual trolling of, and not trolling in the bad way, that word has taken on kind of a negative connotation, but just sort of his regular perusal of Facebook, and saw a post from one of our good friends who I don't think I'm going to call out here on the show, talking about the recent possible shift in the Boy Scout homosexual member policy, and had a couple of insightful comments to that thread. I picked that up sort of while I was following Doc, and then posted my own thing, which received pretty minuscule response, mainly because it was so long. So maybe, Doc, if you want to kick things off with the sort of the new policy shift, if there is going to be one, because we're not sure if there is, and I'll back it up with a little bit of historical context.
Well, I'm sure that you've researched the history of the Boy Scouts more than I have. I don't know very many kids when I was growing up that wasn't a member of the Boy Scouts. And I know that when I went through, they definitely said that this is a Christian organization. We have Christian beliefs. Our motto reflects our morality. And the problem is it's been a motto and a morality that served them well. And in fact, even to today. The problem really comes down to, you know, there is what I believe is an unfair, I don't know what to say, comparison between homosexuality and pedophilia. And the problem is homosexuality is one issue, pedophilia is something completely different. One of the things that the Boy Scouts have quietly pointed to is the fact that the Catholic Church tolerates gay priests as long as they're not actively practicing the gay lifestyle. What they then point out is, since the Catholic Church said it's okay for gay priests to be priests, well, with the explosion of all the accusations of child abuse and child sexual abuse that hammered the church, again, they're pointing to that as, well, see, this is our point reinforced. What people don't understand is that homosexuality is an orientation, and pedophilia is something that develops over time. People may disagree about whether you're born homosexual or not, but I can tell you in the studies that I've seen, the work that I do with the gay community, and viewing, you know, like, I don't make a secret of this, I have a transgender cousin and a gay cousin. They were born this way. They've always been that way. And pedophiles have a tendency to be developed. You're not really born a pedophile, you develop that over time. Now, how you develop that pedophilia, that's, you know, myriad of ways you can do it. Exposure to pornography, being sexually assaulted, a whole range of things. But you don't really go out and just become gay overnight. Generally, that's the way it is. And this person that we're not going to name, because, you know, I think we both have a respect for this person, is saying, well, you know, the Boy Scouts are going to allow these pedophiles in there because they're gay. And for me, it's two issues. If you want to keep gays out of your organization because you're a Christian organization and describe yourself that way, I believe that's your purview. However, to say, well, because they're gay, you're going to allow in pedophiles, I don't think that's the right kind of view. And I think that's completely incorrect.
Well, we'll first of all, I agree with some of what you just said, and actually more, and Doc and I have a classic agreement about homosexuality in general, with respect to some of the things that he works with and that I do in my own law practice. But we're going to get back to a little bit of the distinction between homosexuality and pedophilia. I'm going to talk a little bit about the historical legal context of this, why this is even news, why this is even a story, In the next segment, we're going to come back after a short break, and you are listening to webcast1live.com. Doc and Lefty to every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Thank you.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
It's like they want to get hit.
Need a body shop?
Minor Wreck Express saves you time and money.
Welcome back to Doc and Lefty. You've got the lovable Lefty, as my mom likes to call me. Blake Levine is here with you tonight. The Doc and Lefty program, Webcast One Live. I'm having the number flashed across the screen there. You can call us at 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. If you're on with us tonight and like to try and call in, we probably can't, I don't know that we can necessarily get you on at the same time that Doc's calling in, but I'm sure our producer can try. He's pretty handy with that soundboard back there. So call in if you have a perspective on the conversation we're having today. We'd like to thank Webcast One Live for having us. And so, Doc, before we get back into the topic that we've been talking about, what's been the favorite part of your vacation? I know you've been working this entire time because that's just what you do. But what's been the favorite part of your vacation so far?
I'm gonna have to tell you that any day that I'm out on the ocean floating around is a good day. And it's really the Hawaiian Islands are known for the whales that come down here. In Maui, there's a channel between Lanai and Maui, and they just love playing there. So you can see these huge behemoths lifting themselves almost all the way out of the water, and they'll hover there for, 2 or 3 seconds, and then they just topple over, and you just have this big wave, and they play back and forth. It's just absolutely amazing. And you don't even have to go to the beach. You can sit up on your balcony and see all this stuff. So that's been my favorite part.
That is incredible. You want to know what my favorite part of the winter has been so far?
That I'm here in Hawaii vacationing.
I live vicariously through you, my friend. So we're talking about the possibility that the Boy Scouts of America are going to sort of change decades and decades of tradition, their policy not allowing homosexual members or scout leaders into their organization. We were talking before the break. We were talking a little bit about the difference, and one of the big outcries. You hear this all the time when people are talking about homosexuality with children. They're talking about pedophilia, and the doc made a couple of really good points about the difference between pedophilia and homosexuality. And if you've got a little bit of the history, I'm putting you on the spot, Doc, and I know that you don't have a whole lot of research capabilities on vacation, but I'm wondering if you can kind of tell our listeners a little bit about the psychological history and maybe the 5-cent 5-cent description of sort of like the psychological practices of dealing with pedophilia and what used to be dealing with homosexuality before it was taken off the registry in 1972.
Well, unfortunately, I deal a lot with pedophiles. It's nobody else really wants to take them on as clients. From my perspective, I'm a Christian. I'm here to help people. I'm not really here to judge people. However, I will tell you that once you couple anything with sexuality, whether it's pain or watching videos, whatever it is that you couple with sexuality, that then becomes an addiction so powerful that you really can't break it. There's a lot of disagreement about whether or not it's an actual addiction, but the behavioral aspects of it are exactly the same.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm waiting.
Oh, well, I guess some people from the side that kind of like to equate homosexuality with pedophilia could sort of argue that the that sort of addictive kind of quality that you identify in pedophilia could be you could make that same case for homosexuality. I'm wondering if there's anything functionally different between the two.
Well, the truth is, it depends on how you define, your addiction. I'm a diabetic. I need my medications to, be able to be more healthy in order to feel good during the day. So am I addicted to my medications? Well, yeah, if you really want to look at it boil it down to the essence, I'm addicted to my diabetes medications. The problem is if it interferes with your occupational functioning. And if you're doing something that's illegal and you don't get caught, is it really interfering with your functioning? That's the problem with trying to define psychologically or psychiatrically a problem with pedophilia or a problem with normal sexuality. There are things called paraphilias, fetishes. These things are okay, according to the APA and the DSM-4, as long as they do not impair your social occupational functioning. The problem is, if you're a pedophile and you don't get caught and it doesn't impair your social occupational functioning, is it really a problem? Because it is patient-based. People generally do okay until they get caught with this.
Well, do you suppose, though, that here, I guess, pardon me, that kind of leads to a really sort of, I think for a lot of listeners, a distressing conclusion. If you are, if the status of pedophilia as being an illegal act, which causes stress, which causes anxiety, which a lot of that pressure, especially when when take into consideration that the punishment that is exacted upon someone who's been convicted of pedophilia doesn't just end at the judge's gavel. It extends past into any sort of prison sentence or parole situation that you might want to have. Do you think that if the restrictions on pedophilia were lessened, we'd see people that there would be a more positive effect or a negative effect?
Well, the problem is you would see less people being incarcerated for pedophilia and crimes against children, but you would have much more crimes against children. That's really what the problem is. You're talking about one of the most vulnerable, in fact, the most vulnerable population in our society. Because even though older folks are vulnerable, they at least have the right to vote. They
Sure.
can vote themselves protection. Children often, and it depends on what state you're in, have less rights than a dog down at the Animal Rescue League.
And I think that you kind of drilled down to the main difference, aside from the fact that most homosexuals don't actually have sex with children. The functional difference and social difference between pedophilia and homosexuality, for the folks that are confused, or maybe our listeners to the friend that we've been talking about this past few minutes, that pedophilia, by its very definition, is a sexual crime against a child. And if you're going to commit some sort of sex act with a child, there are unknown, even to psychologists and psychiatrists as talented as yourself, Doc, incalculable damage that is done to that child's psyche, quality of life, so that any sort of occupational stress that's put on the person committing that act is completely negated by the fact that this child's life has been turned upside down. And you do not see that sort of social harm happen with homosexuality, which is one of the reasons why it's been taken off the mental health registry.
Absolutely. There's also, you have to keep in mind that DSM-4 and the American Psychiatric Association are basically political entities. The DSM-4 started out with the DSM started out with a good idea. Let's try to really define what mental illness is. And the problem is after the first one, the way the DSM-4 is, they take political stances. If you want to look at what makes a behavior abnormal, you take a percentage of that population and say, outside of this bell curve, this behavior is abnormal. Well, the problem is outside of homosexuality, every other sexual fetish or deviancy matches about the same percentage as homosexuality. So the reason they dropped it really was political pressure.
Well, I'm gonna challenge you on that one, because that was one of the arguments that this friend of ours made that I just have a complete problem with. I mean, the research that went into the basis for the dropping of homosexuality was done decades before the Stonewall riots or anything that sparked any kind of gay rights movement in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, you had Alfred Kinsey and Evelyn Hooker doing research back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, saying that homosexuality was not something that was a mental pathology, that was something that was a normal expression of sexuality, and that if you took a double-blind study the way that Dr. Hooker did, you would not be able to tell between if you were dealing with a homosexual man or a straight man.
Now I agree 100% with that. I do. I personally do not view it as a sexual deviancy. But the problem really is, if you look at how they define what is aberrant and abnormal behavior, it's simply on a bell curve and a percentage of the population engage in that the rest of the population don't. And my point is, outside of homosexuality, everything else that's in the DSM-4 that's related to sexual deviancy has about the same percentage. So, they really did, after the Stonewall thing, I understand what you're saying, but after the Stonewall thing and the political pressure was brought, that was the only time they dropped that. So for me, even though the information was there, they dropped it because of political pressure. Yeah, the other thing is Kinsey has been, sexual studies since Kinsey's time. He was important that he at least made us look, but there's a lot of the things that his studies have shown that really have turned out not to be as true as what we wanted. I mean, it's the same with Darwin. It's the same with Freud. The pioneers at least made us look, but then sometimes when we really take a hard look, because of their limitations,
right,
with what they had, the information turns out to be different.
And I absolutely agree with that. And that was a point that I was going to make, because one of the things that was, I have a couple of issues. And we kind of got off the Boy Scouts topic, but I promise I'll bring it all back. One of the big problems that I had with this line of argument, one of the points that our friend made was that, isn't it interesting, isn't it funny that homosexuality just a few years ago was considered a mental illness, and now we're talking about letting these crazy folks get married. Well, I mean, this person is a self-confessed, very devout Christian, and I'm not going to be casting aspersions in this program about Christians or other religious people unless I get goaded into it. But I just want to point out that the very reason that homosexuality was classified as a mental illness back in the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century was that was a post-Enlightenment secularizing maneuver for folks to explain homosexual behavior without having it be subject to the auspices of sodomy laws in the early part of the Union and as far back as Henry VIII. So I mean, these sodomy laws go way back, or go all the way back to when Henry VIII kicked the Pope out of England and had been in place to punish people for homosexuality. I mean, the code in Rhode Island had a sodomy law that was that used the Leviticus verse as its basic premise for authority. And so you had these doctors, these early psychotherapists, and these doctors coming along in the 19th century saying, "Hey, look, we got to we have to explain it some way. This doesn't make any sense. We got to get these people away from the church. Hey, you know what? If it's a mental illness, then it's not a sin, and if it's not a sin, then it can't be punished." Now, obviously, there's a problem with calling any sort of behavior like homosexuality or heterosexuality or whatever or what have you as a mental illness, and that's where we are today. But the Christians out there that want to say, hey, hold on a second, this is a mental illness 50 years ago. What the heck happened? Well, that's what happened. You had secular, humanistic scientists saying, hey, we're going to explain this as a mental illness. And so if you're a Christian, you subscribe to that. Basically, you've given up your whole argument.
Well, and I agree. I mean, there's nothing there that I disagree with. Part of my thing with the Boy Scouts of America,
yes,
is they're going to have to sit down and take an honest look at whether they want to be considered a Christian organization or not.
Well,
for me, I mean, let's be straightforward. If you're a Christian and believe in the Bible and the Word of God, it says directly you have to cast out these people, men that lay with men and women that lay with women.
Well,
you can't have them in your organization. So they have to define whether they're going to be a Christian organization like they were when I was a kid, or they're going to have to drop that moralistic pretense and just say we're a bunch of guys goofing around trying to teach kids how to camp.
Well, and the thing is, there are a lot of Christians out there, Doc, and I was going to talk about this if we had done the religion show, like I had initially pitched to you, which probably would have ended in bloodshed if I'd gotten a guest in here. But there are a lot of Christians out there that have that believe in the Bible, that profess a faith, profess that Jesus Christ was the Messiah who died for their sins, and say that there's enough love to go around to include their homosexual brothers and sisters. And so, I mean, I understand your view based on your particular Christian faith is, I would imagine is the majority still. But I just wanted to point out that there are plenty of denominations of Christians out there that will marry homosexual people, who allow homosexuals to be members or even deacons in their church, who give them leadership roles, and so. To just kind of make that point that even faith traditions are starting to recognize that inclusiveness over exclusiveness is kind of the way to go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like to point out to the really hardcore Christian conservatives that like to pick and choose which commandments they follow or which laws, canons that have been put out. One of the things I find is funny is the Jews didn't allow any homosexuals in their army. They would kill them, throw them out of camp, and stone them. That's what the Old Testament, that's what you do. So the people that God used to punish the Jews were people that routinely encouraged homosexuality, and that's the Philistines. The other thing I like to point out just to people in general when they start talking about, that guy's gay or he's a fag or whatever they might be saying, the toughest group of people widely acknowledged historically that were the toughest military people around until the U.S. Marines came along were the Spartans. And they actively promoted homosexuality among the ranks.
I think there are a lot of things in the historical record that might be a little unclear, but back to the Boy Scouts.
But that isn't unclear. I mean, the Spartans actively encouraged that. I mean, they did. I cannot remember their chief. The 300 movie supposedly was supposed to be about that. Whatever that guy's name, they've uncovered tablets and those little pottery things that showed that they encouraged that kind of thing.
Well, it's that behavior or the homosexuality was talked a lot about in Plato and Aristotle as well, and so it's pretty well settled that homosexuality has been around for a really long time. The Boy Scouts, though, what was shocking to me about this when you brought this up to me, Doc, is I remember reading just kind of because I'm a nerd this way, reading the Boy Scouts of America v. Dale case, which was handed down by the Supreme Court back in 2000, and sort of centered on the fact that they went to court over this 13 years ago to keep homosexual leaders and members out of their organization, and the court upheld it mainly because they viewed them as this religious organization or as a private organization that wanted to be, that had the First Amendment right to exclude members. The argument on the other side being that the Boy Scouts were an organization of public accommodation, that they were subject to New Jersey's public accommodation laws like a restaurant or hotel, and because of the public accommodation laws in New Jersey and the Civil Rights Act applied to the states under the 14th Amendment, that you couldn't discriminate in such a way as to prevent them from joining. And my viewpoint over this has evolved over the last few years as I've just been thinking about it, and we'll get into my viewpoint right after this break. We're going to take another quick break and come back and finish up on the Boy Scouts and homosexuality, then get into immigration reform and Senator Harkin's retirement from the United States Senate. So thanks for joining us so far. We're at the halfway point. Stick with us. Doc and Lefty, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Welcome back. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty here on WebcastOneLive.com. We've got our good friend and mentor, the good doctor in Hawaii over Skype, and he'll be back in the studio next week, I believe, unless something terrible happens and his flight is canceled and he has to stay in Hawaii for another few days. Wouldn't that be just awful?
That would be awful. Now, I want to share this with you, Lefty. I went out and got myself a little pineapple drink at a place called Cheeseburger in Paradise, and I'm having fun just for you. Now, you know I don't drink.
That's true.
But it's awful good.
You know, you sent me a picture of those fruity cocktails that you guys were drinking last week, and I was pretty envious until I remembered that you don't partake in alcohol, and then I was less jealous, except for where you are located.
Except for where I was. You know what's amazing about that stuff? It's just ice. They call it a shave ice, and it's sugar-free, no calories, tastes great.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So go ahead.
No, so let's get back to the Boy Scouts. You want to finish this up a little bit?
Yeah.
Go on, or
I just wanted to conclude the point. Now, it seems pretty obvious to folks that the Supreme Court wouldn't allow the New Jersey state legislature to force a private organization from having to accept homosexual members if it didn't want to. But as we saw in the 60s, the civil rights movement, some of the legacies of that is that we have a distinction for places called places of public accommodation, like your public pools, your restaurants, your hotels, basically in an effort to make it possible for folks of color or other minorities to access these public services, even though they're private businesses, but they're for public consumption, to be able to use them and have the benefits of them, so they weren't second-class citizens or discriminated against. And what the Supreme Court did after the arguments from both sides, the Supreme Court said, "Well, hey, look, this isn't like that. The Boy Scouts of America are a club." And they, even though they sort of recruit membership from the public has to kind of apply. And so they need to be able to express their viewpoints to gain membership. And they had a particular policy and a particular viewpoint that was based on the Christian interpretation of the Bible that said homosexuality wasn't a good value to teach as normal for young men to grow and develop, and that if they had to have homosexual members, that would impede their ability to spread their particular viewpoint, even though some people find it offensive. I mean, I personally find that offensive. I do, and this is the way that my viewpoint has evolved. When I first read the case, my initial gut reaction was the Boy Scouts are absolutely a place of public accommodation. They take from the public. They provide a public service. They do numerous things. And if you're a homosexual person and want to be involved in that and gain the benefits of that and thereby benefit the community from that sort of membership, then you should be able to, and you shouldn't be prevented from doing so. But as I reread the syllabus of the opinion and kind of when I was doing a little bit of research for the show, I kind of dawned on me, well, and especially given the context of the thinking about shifting their policy, isn't this exactly how we want free speech to work? Over the last 13 years, homosexuality, gay marriage, the different issues related to same-sex couples have been more and more in the news, have become more and more of a hot-button topic that is going the same sex advocates' way. Over the last 13 years, we've seen the public opinion for gay marriage shift to more people being in favor of it. And the Boy Scouts of America, being a very savvy organization and who are always prepared, don't forget, are looking at those sorts of changing political demographics. And I think if this change goes through, they're saying, you know, we need to be able to exist and recruit in a world that looks at homosexuality as more of a normal social institution rather than this deviant sexual behavior that a lot of people would like for us to keep thinking. And so to be viable, to be relevant for a changing population of young men, we need to reevaluate our policy.
Well, and I would agree. They probably are, you know, doing exactly what you said. But one of the things that people point out is this is a slippery slope. They have a professor, and I think he's from Columbia, who went to Switzerland to escape, you know, laws that say you can't have sex with your children in order to have sex with his grown child. The defense he's using is, well, if homosexuality is legal, this is just another form of sexuality. Now, I don't quite agree with that, but, you know, in these kind of cases, you know, it's going to only give fodder to those who say, well, we need to outlaw homosexuality. So I think, you know, I'm going to take the final word on that. I think a much more interesting subject is the immigration policy that they're trying to come up with.
I think so too. And I printed off a couple of things so I could talk a little bit about what the president said in his comments today. And I guess he endorsed the bipartisan Senate approach that the framework that was announced last week. And Doc, do you know about that approach? Can you kind of enlighten us?
Well, you know, the problem is of course we get information about 6 hours later than everybody else.
Right.
And from what I was able to see, they've just released the preliminary outline. One of the things they want to do is increase guest worker programs. Another thing they want to do is make temporary visas for people to come in and do farm work. They want, through civil service and civil action, to be able to not grant amnesty to these people, but give them a way for citizenship. Ronald Reagan did a blanket amnesty. Well, fine, you're here, we're not going to do anything, and you can become a citizen. The way I read this is that you have to, I mean, like people that come here legally, you have to go out and you have to learn the Constitution, you have to learn the history and everything else. And that's the third key part of that, is that they have to go out and do public service to be able to become citizens.
Well, I was reading a little bit about this in the Washington Post, and this is kind of, and I think that you have the gist of it, right? This is what the president outlined today. He said, and I'm going to quote from the article, they would register, submit biometric data, pass background checks, and pay fees before gaining provisional legal status. After taking those steps and learning English, the immigrants would wait in line for existing immigration backlogs to clear before being allowed to apply for permanent resident status, while immigrants must hold before they can apply for citizenship. That must mean what immigrants must hold before they. So it looks like there's 3 steps. That there's this provisional legal status, permanent resident status, and then citizenship. And I guess if adding another layer of this doesn't seem like it's going to ease the backlog or work very well. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the actual path to citizenship is going to be, it's probably not going to pass either the Senate or the House. It's not. Even the conservative Democrats in Congress don't want to touch this. The moderate Republicans in either house are not going to want to touch this.
You mean this plan isn't going to pass?
I don't believe I believe there are parts of that plan that are going to pass. I don't believe that path to citizenship is going to pass. I believe that by the time they get done with this bill, they're going to have that part watered down so much that it's either not going to be part of the bill or it's not going to be effective. What I really like about this bill is the guest worker program, the seasonal worker program, and the fact that they're going to create more, not only the people with education, more visas for them, but people that want to do the back-breaking work that, nobody else wants to do. I mean, keep in mind, our current immigration situation occurred. I mean, there are basically, 3 different people responsible for this mess. One is Ronald Reagan, one is Tip O'Neill, and a third one is Chuck Grassley. Now, I'm a big fan of Chuck, but when they said we're only going to issue 5,000 non-skilled worker visas a year, that's what created this immigration nightmare. Because you have to keep in mind, most of the illegal immigrants that actually come in actually go back out as well. Most of these people really do just work on the farm and then go back home. And I think increasing that number is going to do a lot to ease this, quote, illegal immigration.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all works. I guess I'm kind of critical because I'd like to see the path to citizenship a little bit easier, a little bit more liberalized. There's been a lot of rumblings about cracking down on the border and strengthening the systems, even though we're seeing reverse immigration back to Mexico. I feel like that there's a lot of racial profiling issues that happen there too. Also, I would like to see a more strict. If we're not going to have a strong path of citizenship, I'd like to see more emphasis placed on the businesses that lure folks over here and make it easy for them to come to this country in an undocumented way, which causes all kinds of problems, especially when they're applying for public services like education and healthcare. And that I think that's a good step. We need to go and hear from another one of our sponsors. We're going to hear from a sponsor that helps fund this entire operation that we've got going. If you have a heating or cooling issue, contact the folks at Service Legends. They sponsor this program. They sponsor every program here, webcast1live.com, and you definitely need to check out this next ad.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
Welcome back, Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. I want to thank Webcast sponsors helping us out with this program and with the facility here, and we just really appreciate everything that they're able to do, so that two guys who used to be neighbors arguing in their driveways can come and argue with each other over the internet. That's been my lifelong dream. I know it's been Doc's lifelong dream. So, Doc, this immigration plan, I just want to kind of cap off our discussion before we move on to Senator Harkin's retirement. This is the border states obviously are the ones that have the most to lose from this not happening. And I think that we both agree that something absolutely has to be done, but maybe, and which is something that was kind of echoed. And I was a little bit disheartened, and maybe I shouldn't be, and I should probably not be surprised by the Speaker Boehner coming out and kind of being a little bit critical of the president's comments through his spokesman. He says there are a lot of ideas about how best to fix our broken immigration system. Any solution should be a bipartisan one, and we hope the president is careful not to drag the debate to the left and ultimately disrupt the difficult work that is ahead in the House and Senate. I mean, this is a response to a speech where the president basically came out and supported a bipartisan Senate coalition kind of looking at this problem in a serious way, because the House hasn't been able to do anything.
Well, first of all, I think that what Boehner was saying is, I got conservative wolves biting at my heels. If you drag it too far left, I'm not going to be able to do anything. The second thing is, honestly, there are the bipartisan people that came up with this are moderates pretty much on all sides. You don't have a far lefty on the Democratic side, and you really don't have a right-wing conservative on the Republican side. So I think what it really was Boehner saying, yeah, we need to get something done, but you can't politicize this and drag it all the way over so that I lose my Tea Partiers and my Libertarians. I think that's what he told the president. I don't think that he was trying to make a threat. I think he was saying, this is my reality.
Well, I guess immigration reform is something is going to happen. Whether or not it satisfies anybody will be the question. But I really think that he's come out pretty strong on this. He's leading. The president is leading directly. He hasn't sloughed it off to the vice president like he did with gun reform. So I think that immigration reform is going to take the catbird seat over the next few months, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I do want to point out two things. One, I had an immigration reform thing that looked very similar to this. I think the reason it got picked up is because I was involved in politics, which brings me to my second point, Blake. Get involved. Get out, vote, become active in politics. My brother Mike was reminding me he was president of the College Republicans, and he said he gave up because it was such a dirty business. You can't give up. It doesn't take a lot of money to go out and volunteer to meet these people. Get your ideas into the mainstream. If an ugly old mook like me without a lot of brains can get something done like this, then imagine what a smart guy like Lefty could do.
Well, I was hoping that you would bring up, because I went back to the old BertrosForCongress.com website to look at your immigration package that you proposed here. First of all, it is woefully undersourced the way that you go after terrorism with a little like novella here, and you only got 3 paragraphs on the immigration reform. But you do have it looks like the biometric data here that you talk about. But the one thing that is the major difference is they cannot become citizens, and they cannot get government services or Medicare, and they pay a 10% income tax penalty for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's pretty. I'm not going to say extreme, but that's a pretty harsh a policy proposal.
Well, when you violate the law, there should be a penalty.
Well, sure there should, but there's
a penalty.
Well, one of the things.
I'm not saying it's 100% mine, and I didn't mean to bring it up so that we could debate it. I just said that if at least some of my policy got in there into the debate, because nobody was talking about it before 2010, nobody seriously, right?
Well, no, I agree with that.
I mean, I'm speak in front of Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich kind of goes, that's kind of a good idea. He even mentions the blue card on Fox News. right?
Right. Well, no, first of all, I wasn't trying to make you. And here's the thing about springing something on a guy when he's in Hawaii. If I'd tried that with Doc here in the captain's chair, I would have gotten smacked with a book. This book in front. What is this book here sitting in front of me? It looks like. It's the Bible. So he probably would have grabbed the Bible and hit me upside the head with it in a literal fashion. But the thing that I think that the big problem with this debate, honestly, is because you're right. If you break the law, there has to be a penalty, and we're very, very familiar with that. I heard Bruce Braley make a really good point on Iowa Press just the other day. You break the law, there should be a penalty, but people break the law all that they commit misdemeanors, they commit felonies, they pay a fine, they go on with the rest of their lives, but there's a legal structure in place for some of the lesser serious offenses to make it so that they can have a normal life, where they get their offense expunged through a deferred judgment process, where they successfully complete a parole program. The big problem with this debate is I think that that both sides are so far apart on how serious of an offense they view undocumented immigration. I mean, on the left, you have these folks saying, "Hey, they broke the law, so let's give them a slap on the wrist and send them back to the grape orchard or the grape fields." And you got the people on the right saying, "Well, they broke the law. Let's string them up or put them in the penitentiary for the rest of their lives." And I'm being extreme and inflammatory for a reason, because I think that you see that somewhere in the middle is the solution, where sure, the penalty, I mean, it's got to be a little more serious maybe than jaywalking, but not quite so serious as a 10% income tax. I guess that's my thought.
Well, we'll debate that next week.
Sure.
The bottom line is, the reason I had that in there is they only pay 80% of the taxes that a regular American would pay anyway.
So you're trying to compensate.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So let's move on to Tom Harkin.
Yeah.
Before I forget, the governor is going to be doing this Ask the Governor thing. If you go to our Facebook page, I've shared it with my friends. You can go and submit a question to them about whatever, and apparently they'll pick whatever ones he can answer and answer that one. But I figured at least that's a good one. Tom Harkin retiring. I think maybe Lefty and I disagree about how important this is. Tom Harkin has been a bastion of lefty looniness since he got into Congress. He beat Senator Roger Jepsen to get a seat because he is a hardball player. He's one of the few voices of liberalism that is consistent, like Teddy Kennedy.
Yep.
And Teddy Kennedy died, and really the heart and the soul of the Democratic left really does kind of reside with Tom Harkin. I'm not saying that Teddy's death made his ascendancy. He was already sitting at the right hand of Teddy Kennedy. So it's not much of a step up for him. And I think, there's a lot of theories out on the right about why he retired, this ISU fund and a couple other things he's not asking questions about. Bottom line is he survived a lot more controversy, much worse than that. I'm not sure if it's a personal issue or whatever else, but he's picked one of the worst times ever to retire because he's got a guaranteed seat in 2014, even though it's an off season.
Well, see, I think that the politics make a little more sense to me the more I kind of think about it. He might have picked a better time. He absolutely could have gotten reelected in 2014. He's 73, 74 years old. That means that he would have been up for reelection again by the time he was 80, which means that he would have had to retire probably in that next term between 2014 and 2020. So, are you going to risk the chance of having a Republican governor in the because it's likely to be Branstad. If Branstad's going to run again, I think, and it's either going to be. I think it's right now the rumbling is that Bruce Braley is thinking about making a run, and I think that Bruce Braley could really do some damage to Branstad. I think it's going to be kind of tough if Branstad runs again, or if he handpicks a successor and we get a Republican governor in 2014. That means that when Tom Harkin retires, say in 2015, 2016, that governor is going to have the power to appoint him to a provisional seat, to appoint the replacement to a provisional seat, and that senator is going to have a lot to say about keeping that seat in 2020. And I think that Tom Harkin coming out now and giving his Democratic successor over a year and nearly 2 years, about a year and 9 months or so, to start raising money, start making a run for it. That kind of gives his successor a lot more of a chance than trying to come in and defeat a semi-incumbent senator who got appointed by the governor in 2020.
Well, you and I both agree. You and I both agree 100% on that. It's kind of spooky how we think alike. I think that Democratic seat is going to be difficult to win because it's an off-year election. They don't have a strong Democrat that's made a strong showing outside of Bruce Braley. 3, he's not well known outside of his district. And 4, he's stumbling. My guess is going to be King and Latham are going to sit down to figure out who's going to run. And, if one of those people decide to run, especially if it's Latham, Bruce Braley is going to have a very difficult time overcoming Latham's popularity.
Oh, you mean for the Senate seat or for the governor's seat?
For the Senate seat. The governor's seat, now I think if Braley takes on Branstad's going to stomp on him. This is exactly the way it was when Ray was running, and it's exactly the way it was when Branstad ran the first time around. Branstad is such a popular kind of individual. He's very charismatic personally. He makes you feel like, he's not Bill Clinton, because nobody's Bill Clinton, but he's really a guy that can motivate a crowd.
It's funny because I have the exact opposite reaction to him whenever I'm in the same room or talk to him. He just I don't know, because, and you've seen me talk to prominent Republicans before, and you know that it's not just a sort of a gag reflex that I have, but there's something about Terry Branstad that it's one of those things. Now, I mean, I know his family a little bit. I bartended at Des Moines Golf, where his son and his son's family are members, and I know his son a little bit. And the governor had been out there a few times, and even before he was reelected, and he just there's a Dave Barry quote that says if you're rude to the help, then you're probably rude to everybody else. And I'm not gonna come right out and say that Terry Branstad was rude to me personally, but he definitely has a different demeanor when he's dealing with, quote unquote, the regular folks than he does when he's in public.
Well, I think, I don't know. I've never seen that part of him. He's always treated me very well, even when I was a snot-nosed kid.
Yeah.
He's got this ability to connect with people. Maybe you didn't see it or feel it. He does irritate the right quite a bit. He's not as strong on his anti-abortion stance as a lot of the right would want him.
Sure.
But the problem is who are you going to run? King just got done stomping all over Vilsack, and
I think he only beat her by 7 points. I mean, which is a lot, but it reflects the registration gap.
Well, but yeah. So I think King held on to a seat. 7 points is still a big deal. Latham pounded on Boswell pretty heavy. So you're looking at, and of course Lang beat, Braley beat Lang pretty handily over at Cedar Rapids. But again, we're talking about an off-year election. I think if Lang would have waited until 2014, he would have stood a much better chance at beating Braley, because Braley barely beat him.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. Here, we're coming up to we're closing out our hour, and we just want to make sure we thank everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna kick the last word to you. But here's my thought. Just my 2-cent political analysis. If you've got a King, Latham, Braley Senate race, Braley beats King. King beats Latham. Latham and Braley, it's a toss-up.
Yeah, all right. I can see that, but I'm going to disagree that if King runs, that Braley's going to beat him.
Or you can't. Steve King is not electable outside of Northwest Iowa, Pat.
No, I don't. I
not
disagree
even close.
With that. I disagree with that for two reasons. Braley is just as left as King is right. Two, people in the Republican Party want somebody who's going to fight. Now, I'm going to say that, it might be a tougher row to hoe for King. The last thing is Latham. I think if Latham runs, I think King-Latham is not going to be a primary. I think they're going to decide between the two of them.
And we'll have to make that the last word, Doc. I apologize, but thanks for tuning in. Doc, thanks for calling. We're looking forward to seeing you back here in the studio next week. This has been Doc and Lefty coming in from Des Moines, Iowa, webcast1live.com. Thank you so much. Have a very pleasant evening and the rest of the week.